Andy, great to have you back on Mea Culpa. Good to see you, my friend. So much to talk about, so much going on. Got to jump right into it.
Sure.
Elon Musk walked away from the Trump administration with a blowtorch, slamming the so-called Big Beautiful Bill as a fiscal time bomb. What do you think finally drove the wedge between Trump and obviously his highest profile ally?
You know, there were two camps of people starting with January and February. The camp that said this relationship can't last and won't last very long. And then there were people that were predicting that it would go a year, maybe longer. I was in the camp that said it's going to end sooner than later. And my prediction was right about now. And that's because you're talking about two, malignant narcissists who are used to sitting in the corner offices and having everybody say how high when they say jump. And they're both erratic. And as the New York Times reported last week, at least one of them might be hopped up on something all the time. And so it just seems like it was inevitable. It was absolutely inevitable. And I also, I want to go back on my podcast and find where I said this. You're talking about two guys who both run and have access to their own social media platforms. So I predicted that when the shit eventually does hit the fan, you're going to start to see, starting with Musk, taking to X to trash Trump and or administration policies. And that's what we're seeing now. So to me, it's no surprise.
You may remember early on, I'm not sure if it was even on your show, but I started doing predictions as well. And I said, who's going to be the first to go? Who's going to be the second? And a lot of people were concerned that Elon Musk was going to overstay, the 100, plus days that you're allowed to if you're not a government employee. And I said, he won't even make it, basically to that. And if he does, it'll just touch right onto it. But he will be the first to go. Right after him, I think you're going to see somebody like Lutnick go. You're going to see, there's a series that I started to list out. Why? Exactly the same reason that Elon Musk is irritating. And knowing Trump as well as I do, the jumping around, the kid on his fucking shoulders, the chainsaws, the stupid shirts, and so on. While Trump was sitting there and smiling while all this was going on, he was smiling for one reason, because he knew he was using Elon Musk to get something that he wanted. Now that he got what he wanted, it's not funny anymore. It's not appreciated anymore. In Trump's mind, he's like, my grandkids aren't hanging out in the Oval Office. I don't want your kid here.
Well, look, he used him for his money. He spent, $240 or $50 million to help get him elected. He got him elected, and then the shit hit the fan. I mean, if you look back on these first 4 months of Doge, it didn't go very well for Musk. It didn't go very well for Trump. First, they were going to cut $2 trillion in federal spending. That was lowered to $1 trillion. Estimates have it now at 170 billion, and that's questionable because the experts are questioning the accuracy of some of those numbers, as well as the fact that some of the contracts that they claim were canceled under the Biden administration. So the net effect of what he and Doge and Trump were able to achieve was a whole lot of nothing, and at the same time, Musk took it on the chin. I mean, they were blowing up Tesla showrooms and electrical charging stations, and his personal reputation has just been eviscerated, and let alone his personal wealth, which took a 50% drop. It's rebounded somewhat, but numbers came out the other day about Tesla sales in Europe down 50, 60, 70, 80% in various countries. So it was a colossal failure for Musk. It was a colossal failure for Trump. I think at the end of the day, as you know from working with him for a dozen or so years, Trump is going to be the winner ultimately, because that's just how it works.
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly. In fact, that's exactly what my Substack of the day is, where I'm talking about Elon Musk is going to get eviscerated. That Trump doesn't leave scorched earth alone, right? He's already beginning to denigrate him. He's already beginning to attack him in response, of course, to Elon Musk saying shit about, Trump and the big, beautiful bill. I want to ask you this, Andy. What does Musk's departure signal about Trump's ability to keep high-profile allies in line? And what kind of chaos you think this unraveling partnership is going to create inside the GOP?
Well, we're seeing it now. I mean, House Speaker Mike Johnson said yesterday that he's really disappointed in Musk. Of course, calls him a friend, my friend. They always say that when they obviously hate someone. But what it signals, as you very well know, from the first Trump administration to your experience with him at Trump.org, there's so much turnover with Donald Trump. I mean, if we just go back to the 16 to 20 administration, nobody stayed. And most of the people were gone by a year. That's another thing I've been saying. Mark my words, within 10 to 12 months of this Trump 2.0, all the people we talk about all the time, Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi, et cetera, in my opinion, they're all going to be gone. So that's what this signals. You take what was Trump's biggest pal, biggest financial supporter, and co-policy maker. I mean, for Christ's sakes, everybody called him the co-president, which I think probably got under Trump's skin more than anything else, which might be one of the motivators of this bromance coming to an end. Trump hates sharing the spotlight and the attention with anyone. So yeah, that's what it signals. It signals that more heads are going to roll, more departures are going to come. And yes, there is chaos and turmoil, and has been from the get-go since January in this administration. So I'm here for it.
Oh, it's going to be a shit show. Let me ask you this, because a whole slew of nonpartisan analysts, every one of them are warning that the big, beautiful bill is going to balloon the national deficit by more than $3.8 trillion over the course of the next decade. Question I want to ask you is, how dangerous is this kind of unchecked spending, especially when it's paired with Trump's brand of economic denialism?
Yeah, well, the greatest myth in American political history is that spending and deficits and debt all come down under Republican administrations. In fact, the opposite is true. It's the Democrats who consistently run a better shop, and it's Republicans who consistently drive up the debt. And I think the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, came out this morning and said it's about 2.4 trillion in terms of how it's going to increase the deficit. And that's a lot of dough. And when getting back to Musk, when you consider that he cut or allegedly cut 170 billion, that's a big difference from 2.4 trillion, which means, and this is the reason why he's pissed off and why he's called what I call the big ugly ass bill. It's not a big beautiful bill, and I wish the media would stop talking about it as the big beautiful bill. It's the big ugly ass bill. He's pissed off because he spent 4 months, in his mind at least, slashing 170 billion, and now they're adding 2.4 trillion. So that's just another example of how this whole Doge thing was nothing but chaos, meaningless chaos, which by the way, has hurt a lot of people in this country and our friends and our ability to help other countries abroad.
Yeah, look, I was just watching on CNN. They were talking to a wine farmer, right? A guy, a grape farmer who started out with his mom. Just the two of them. Now there's over 20 employees. They're probably going to have to shut the business because of tariffs and so on. And it's again, I just find the whole thing to be stupid. But the question that I keep thinking about is, what the hell is the end game here? Is this bill about stimulus, or is this some strategic blow to the federal government's long-term stability? I can't figure it out, because this, as you call it, the big ugly ass bill, it just doesn't make sense to me.
And it shouldn't. I think you used the word strategic. There's no strategy here. There's no strategy with the tariffs. It's Donald Trump wakes up in the morning and goes, how can I fuck things up today? That's the strategy. So endgame, I don't know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea with anything he does what his endgame is, because it's all driven by id and ego. It's decisions made by fiat. It's decisions made by crippling insecurities, what have you. I don't, what I do know is the impact it's had. I mean, just think about where this country has been the last 4 months in terms of the economic peril that we've experienced, the geopolitical and the global economic peril that we're experiencing, how our partners overseas, our allies now view us, the fact that we no longer are viewed as a safe haven for foreign investment. It's been absolute chaos. And your question is the most important one. Why? Despite what he says, he inherited one of the greatest economies in decades. He inherited one of the greatest job markets. Today, I think one of the pre-indicators of the May jobs report indicated that we only generated about 37,000 new jobs, which is like the lowest in 2 or 3 years. And so he took something that was really good, and for no coherent, conceivable, meaningful reason, trashed it all. So I don't know. I don't know what it's the great question, but I don't know what the answer is. What his ultimate end goal is.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't understand. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other night, and I said, I don't see the end game. It's like going to the store, buying the most expensive filet mignon that you can find, right? Some Wagyu filet mignon. They only bring in like maybe 10 pounds of it a year, and you cook it up to fucking perfection. You bring in like a Jean George or somebody to cook it for you on your grill. And then you go ahead, after it's served onto a gorgeous china plate with silverware, the whole 9 yards, I mean silverware, and then you just turn it around and you throw some mud on it. It just, again, I don't understand it. It is baffling to me. And it sort of then triggers to me this whole notion that obviously they have no idea what it is that they're doing, except telling you that every time that they have an opportunity to remind you of the name, the big, beautiful bill, and that this is going to not balloon the deficit, but it is going to reduce the deficit by over $2 trillion. And yet, when they ask like Caroline Levitt, can you just tell us how? Is there actually a policy that we can reference to review and so on? No, but 77 million Americans voted for President Trump because this is what he campaigned on, this is what he promised, and this is what he's delivering. It's sort of the answer, non-answer to the answer on a question that is so important, because what we're doing is we are burying our children, our grandchildren, to some people, their great-grandchildren. We are burying their future, where there is no way that they will be able to earn enough money to pay the deficit and then to enjoy the fruits of their labor.
Yeah, it's a mess. And, like I said, this is consistent with what Republicans do. And, interestingly, because it is, I'm going to jump back to Musk for a second, because it is all tied in. First thing is that the cuts to Medicaid in this bill don't take effect until December 26th, which guess what that comes after? The midterm election.
Right after the midterms, sure.
And Musk, in his tweet the other day, where he called the big ugly ass bill a disgusting abomination, he threatened the Republicans who vote for it. Now what they're seeing is, not only is his money not going to be around to help us, perhaps, if we pass this piece of shit bill, but he's going to maybe primary us with his money. So they're terrified. So the shit show, there's like another layer of icing on this shit show. And I don't think Trump even cares because, again, there's no strategy. He just loves the drama. He loves his people fighting. I mean, you were on the inside with him for so long. Like, I can only imagine how Trump org was run, like the way he pits people. I mean, we saw a little bit of it or a lot of it on The Apprentice, but that's his shtick. He loves when people are eating each other and he just gets to sit and watch it. And that's what's happening. I don't think he stops and goes, "Oh my God, Musk might use his money."
Isn't it very much like Caesar, right? From Rome with the gladiators? You just throw two guys into a coliseum, crack the stick, right? To throw half the stick with the point into the center, and let the two battle it out till one is dead and the other one is victorious. That's what he likes.
I think that's a brilliant analogy. That is him. He loves to see that. He ignites all that shit. He's the one that causes it. But I think this bill, it's a problem for them, and I think you're going to see in the Senate some changes made. I think there's going to be some pretty significant changes to that bill.
Well, then let me ask you this: how do Republicans who spent years and years preaching fiscal discipline, how do they now turn around and defend a bill that is going to sabotage the country's credit rating, that is going to bury future generations to come?
Because they live in mortal fear of dear leader. That's it. He says, this is it. They say, okay, everybody get in line and vote for it. Except they're not all getting in line. The interesting thing is, over the last 4 months, it started with they're just marching in lockstep. Whatever he says, they're going to do. But then we started to see a little bit of a break in that over Ukraine and Russia. And now we're seeing it over money. Those are the two things they really care about. Put kids in cages or kidnap immigrants. They don't care about that. They love that shit. But what speaks to their hearts, if they have any heart, is money and Russia, especially the older Republicans in Congress. And so these are the two divides that we're witnessing right now in the GOP. And we see this bill that I think Lindsey Graham and forget the
you got Rand Paul, you got Marjorie Toilet Green, you even have Josh Hawley, all of whom are publicly, not privately, publicly slamming the bill. I mean, the fact that Marjorie Toilet Green, right, somebody that would defend Trump on anything, slamming the bill, her issue is AI, in that it allows AI to run rampant for the next 10 years. Her concern, and by the way, I actually agree with her. I hate saying it, but I agree with her. AI in 10 years is going to be so different. You cannot comprehend AI in 10 years. In fact, I don't think any of us can comprehend AI in 1 year from now, because AI, artificial intelligence, is actually creating greater artificial intelligence on its own every single day. They're running AI programs for the AI program, and the two programs are competing against one another in order to be better than the other one. So it runs 24 hours to basically create the world's greatest supercomputer thought process. It's actually developing its own personality. But I spoke to a guy who actually is a CEO of a major AI company, a major research AI company. And he turned around and he said the scariest thing that he saw over like the difference from a Friday to a Monday, that the AI program is designing safeguards. So in that way, even if you unplug it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't go away. It embeds itself into a system so it can neither be destroyed or terminated. That's really scary. But I do want to ask you, since we're talking about Marjorie, Rand Paul, even Josh Hawley, are we watching a genuine ideological split, or you think it's just some manufactured fight to give MAGA the illusion of debate?
I think on some level it is definitely ideological because, as I said before, when it comes to certain things like Russia, Trump may think Putin is his pal and Russia is our friend. There's a lot of Republicans who still are back in the Cold War days. And that even includes the younger Republicans. You don't have to have lived through the 50s to be a Republican and still consider Russia an enemy and Putin an enemy. So that's a big rift in the party. And the issue of spending, this is something that I think is tearing the party apart right now, at least when it comes to this bill. And so the bigger question for me is this a greater inflection point on some level, especially as Trump's popularity continues to decrease? These guys all hate him. They don't want to support him. They're not in favor of what he does every day, the same shit that annoys us. But they are afraid of the MAGA base. They're afraid of his people. But as his people more and more start to peel away because they've lost their federal jobs or they're veterans and they can't get through to a VA hospital and get what they need, or their kids can't get their occupational therapy in public school, as that continues to happen, and they fear that MAGA base less, I'm wondering, is that when we're going to see a real inflection point, when they start to really turn on him? Because you can only be a useful idiot for so long, and then you're not useful anymore. And the question becomes, when is that time frame? So I think this budget bill, especially with the Musk factor involved, with him yapping on the sidelines, that's really going to be interesting to watch play out.
But yeah, Andy, I got to just push back on you on something. You made mention that as we're watching his favorability numbers decrease as a result of the chaos and this big ugly ass bill and everything else that's going on day in and day out, the attacks on Ukraine, the pro Putin attitude, and so on and so forth. It's not true. In fact, the New York Times put out, and I hate polls, which everybody knows. I don't have faith in them. I think they're bullshit. But one thing I have to say when it comes to the New York Times is they're pretty fair and legitimate. His favorability numbers in the polls, on 5 different polls they took and they analyzed, either his favorability numbers have remained flat, which is like at 48%, or went up as high as to 52%, that he has increased favorability by +4. And I'm saying to myself, how? That's sort of like spitting in the food of every kid in your class and then being elected class president. And none of this makes any sense to me at all. Has Americans just become so either numb or just so stupid that you could turn around and say, yeah, that's the guy who I want, to see every single day keep pushing these wackadoodle policies forward, that I believe that we need to add another, say, $4 trillion to our, national deficit. Yeah, I think women's reproductive health rights should be more compromised than even just the overturning of Roe versus Wade. Now they want to turn around and restrict doctors from performing emergency room abortions, because every woman runs to the emergency room, right, in order to get herself a standardized abortion. The whole thing is so stupid. Or the attacks on veterans, the cutting of 80,000 veteran administration jobs, and cutting out FEMA, and cutting out the National Weather Service, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's if I'm asked, how do I think he's doing? Oh yeah, I think he's doing just great. The hell is wrong with Americans? Why do they not open up their eyes and listen, to what's really going on?
Well, just as a point of clarification, when I've always referred to the MAGA base, to me that's everyone who voted for him. So that includes the people who think John F. Kennedy Jr. was actually, who think John F. Kennedy Jr. was actually the president, not Joe Biden, to the independent surgeon in New Jersey who was just like, screw it. I don't care about the craziness. I just want lower taxes. And then everybody in between. So when I say his popularity is waning, it's not among the hardcore maggots, but he is getting clobbered among independents. And when you think about how close our elections are these days, how close the election was back in November, where he won by 1.5 points and didn't even break 50%, when he won all the swing states by anywhere from like 0.5 point to 1.5 points. All you need is 3, 4, 5 million people to say, I've had it with this guy. And those are the people that, if they say I've had it with this guy, they're also the same people that will also say, I never really had it with him. Like I was just only there because I couldn't vote for Kamala Harris. So I think that's where his true vulnerability is, with independents who may have voted for Obama or Biden, took a shot on Trump again. And after these 4 months are like, fuck it, this is insanity. And so there's a lot of time between now and the midterms. So the real question is going to be, what's going to happen in Trump 2.0 between now and then? If he wakes up tomorrow and goes, you know what? I'm screwing some shit up. I'm pissing some people off. I'm going to stop all this craziness. I'm going to reverse the tariffs. I'm going to stop the spending cuts. I'm going to put USAID back. If he does that and just governs, Democrats might be screwed. But we know he's not going to do that.
Right.
But he's not going to do that. We can guarantee there's going to be more chaos, because that's what he does. When people say, when he watches TV and sees the media go, oh my God, this bill or this thing he wants to do is chaos, he doubles down, he triples down, because he doesn't have the capacity to go, you know what, I should course correct here. So we can almost guarantee that between now and the midterms, there's going to be more ugliness, more chaos, a bigger shit show, more people getting pissed off, and in particular, more independents, and perhaps even some of his MAGAs who are on the lesser crazy end of the spectrum, who have lost jobs, who've lost services, and who are already showing buyer's remorse.
Well, my biggest concern is I don't find the Democratic Party, I don't find the new guy, Ken Martin, to be effective at all. I keep trying to put it out there. What we need is to simplify the message. Democrats don't have a message. The message right now is that Trump sucks and whoever is going to run against him will be better, right? Or we need to control this out of touch or authoritarian wannabe, and therefore don't vote for whoever the Republican is, only vote for the Democrat so we can take the House and the Senate. That's not an intelligent message. You know what an intelligent message is? How about let's put an end to this notion that tariffs aren't taxes, right? Let's keep saying every time someone, Andy, sticks a microphone in your face, consumers pay tariffs. Tariffs are taxes. And how about another one? We deserve better, right? Or veterans deserve respect. Just jump on these 3 words, because that's what Trump's slogans are. They're simplistic. They're easy to remember. Every single person who goes in front of a microphone on a podium uses the same language. We need to do the same thing. And for whatever the reason is, you have 20 different Michael Cohens, 50 different Andy Ostroys, 100 different Lincoln projects, 1,000 different now Midas Touch networks that all turn around, and everybody's doing something different. It's the one thing the Republicans do, and they do it really well. They message each other, and they all stay on the message, which is, of course, why Trump was so angry at me when I ultimately went off message and blew the whole shit up. But since we're talking about vulnerabilities, I want to ask you, how vulnerable is Trump to rebellion from his own far-right flank?
I think it just depends what happens between now and the midterms. I want to just riff on something you just said because it is important. The Democrats' messaging is important. But I think what voters need to hear from the Democratic Party between now and the midterms is, yes, we also want tighter border controls, but we don't want to be deporting babies and their mothers. Yes, we want to slash spending and waste in government, but we don't want your dad who served this country to not be able to get his veterans benefit. Like, to just sort of make a comparison, but also say, we agree with some of the things in theory, but this is the way we know you'd rather see it done. You know, there are people who wanted a closed border who might be Republican or maybe even be a little bit in the MAGA spectrum, but they may not be happy with what they're seeing, these images of mothers being torn away from their husbands on the street, or students being thrown into white vans. Like, I want to give a little more credit, and maybe this is my own naivete, but I believe there's a lot of people out there who voted for him who don't like watching cruelty, who don't like seeing in their own family cuts being made that impacts the lives and health and safety of their veteran family members, of their kids, of their seniors who need certain, Medicaid or Medicare or Social Security benefits. I mean, older folks can't get through to Social Security offices that have been closed. Like, this is how they attack the system from within. Instead of cutting Social Security, they shut down phone lines. So everybody's getting their benefits, but if you have a problem, you can't get through. So to me, it's about what is going to happen from this day forward. If we're going to see a continuum of the kind of services being cut and the kind of cruelty being demonstrated, I think it is going to erode a part of his base, because I want to believe that a majority of my fellow Americans are decent people. They could be for lower taxes. They could be for deregulation. They could be for closing the border. But I don't think a majority of our fellow Americans are for cruelty. I just don't. And that's the biggest, most devastating thing to come out of this administration so far this year is abject cruelty. The shit that Musk was doing with his chainsaw. He's like, here's the richest human on earth gleefully celebrating the poorest people getting their services taken away. That, I don't think people voted for that. Maybe some did, but I don't think you could say every one of his people did.
No,
and so
I agree with you. I agree with you. Not everyone, every MAGA in every Republican certainly didn't vote for that. And we saw that, which of course is why ultimately Elon ended up getting pushed out. But that's exactly the role that I played for so long, where I would sit down and I would say to him, boss, got to be honest with you. I don't think you want to do this. Let's just play this out for 1 second. You make the decision because you're the president, but let me give you the con to this, to that idea. And I remember sitting in the Oval Office going back to March of 2017, and he asked me about the immigration bill, and I said, permission to speak freely. And he says, of course. So I said, you fucking joking? That's not an immigration bill. That's a Muslim ban. And you're not really thinking that it's a good idea to ban a religion from the country, right? All right, fellas, look, let's cut the crap. You're in the mood, the lights are low, the music's on point, and suddenly, your little general decides taking the night off. Yeah, it happens. It's like trying to start a car with no gas. It's frustrating. It's humiliating. And honestly, it's kind of tragic. But here's the thing. You don't have to suffer through that sad sitcom anymore because Hims is in the game now. So men, if ED is getting you down, you need Hims to help you get your confidence and, other things back up. We're talking personalized, doctor-trusted treatments like Viagra, Cialis, even the chewable tablets, all available for up to 95% less. Yeah, 95% less than what you pay for at the pharmacy. And the best part? No awkward doctor's office, no pharmacy side-eye, no insurance hoops. It's all online. done from your couch, which, well, let's be honest, it might already be your battlefield or your disappointment. So you just fill out an intake form. It's easy stuff. And a real medical provider figures out the best treatment plan for you. And if prescribed, it ships discreetly and directly to your door for free. HIMS is changing the way men deal with ED. And thank God, because the old way, it sucked. But this is fast, it's private, it's effective, and it works. So let's get real. This isn't just about performance. No, it's about taking control, about feeling like you again, and showing up when it matters. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/Cohen. That's HIMS.com/Cohen for your personalized ED treatment options. And the featured products include compounded products which are not approved nor verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality by the FDA. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. So he says, it was Steve Bannon and Steve Miller. Maybe we'll get it right the next time. I was like, next time? Why would you continue? Just think about the damage you're talking about when you're thinking about whether it's re-election or, potential uprisings. You're looking to ban a religion from the country. That's not who America is. That's not who you are. And, then we started talking about, New York and work and everything else, and started smiling and laughing. But I know I got through to him. You know how I know? Because nothing ever came of that bill. They never tried to really put it through again in the same manner. There is no Michael Cohen there. When Steve Miller is asked a question, it's whatever Trump says to him, he repeats, because that's one of Trump's strengths. Like, he'll say to you, Andy, my Trump ice, which is Trump water, is the best water that's out there. It's better than Poland Springs. It's better than Fiji. It's better than Perrier, right? Don't you agree? What are you going to say to him? No, it's shit. The plastic is too thick. The water is sort of like minerally. And so what are you going to say to him? No, you're right, boss. It's the best water ever. That's what he does. He gives you the question knowing that you know the answer that he wants. And that's what they're doing. But
well, I was going to say, you kind of answering your own question in the sense that this is what he's done differently this time. He surrounded himself with people he appointed who in advance have basically said to him, I'm going to tell you your water's the best. So that's different than the first administration back in 2016. There are no Kellys, there's no Mattises, there's no Rex Tillersons. There's none of those guys who are going to say, but wait, sir, let's give you the opposite scenario so that you can play them both out in your head. Now he has, those cabinet meetings that he films and they go around the room, right? With Pam Bondi,
each one praising him more.
Yeah. But saying things like, sir, the American people elected you in the greatest majority margin in history, and you're watching this and you're like, greatest margin in his, like, seriously? But that's what he loves. So that's who he filled his cabinet with day one. But I also think, getting back to what we were saying early in this conversation, I do think that's partly why most of them won't be around sooner than later, because deep down he knows who they are. I mean, let me ask you a question. When you work for him,
hold on, let me correct you on something before you go to your question. They're not going to be around, not because he knows they're full of shit, that they're just patronizing.
That's just one of the reasons. One of the reasons.
That's the real reason that they're not going to be around, is because the policies that he wants them to agree to, the policies that affect the position that they are cabinet members of, are stupid. There's no chance that they're successful. And as one thing everybody should know by now, Trump never is to be held accountable. It's always somebody else's fault. It's Andy Ostroy's fault before it is Donald Trump's fault on whatever it might be. You don't even have to be in the cabinet, and it's your fault. It's Joe Biden's fault. He's not even president anymore. It's always somebody else. And when that fault becomes too big in order to just throw under the rug, the only way that you do that is you push the policy and the individual under the bus.
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. I think we know that Donald Trump has very little respect for the people that work for him. We know that because of the way he treats them, the way he circumvents them and their authority every day. So to me, it's just like what you're saying is true. I think the lack of respect, the fact that he knows they're full of shit, I think it's all of the above. And I think because at the end of the day, he does not truly, genuinely appreciate or respect the talents, the experience, the wisdom, whatever of anyone around him. It's I alone, nobody else. And that's, to me, ultimately what drives him. If there were 100 people in a room, and again, and the question I wanted to ask you, because I'm always so fascinated talking to you, is that you were on the inside. You have a perspective that nobody on this planet, especially in your position, has. And that is, you got to see him at work, okay? And so I've always thought of him as the kind of person that he just has to be the contrarian, because the contrarian is different, right? And being different, that's his way of proving that I alone know everything. Nobody else knows anything. So if you have 100 people in a room who say, sir, you should do A, his default is to go, I'm doing B, because I alone know the answer and all of you are stupid and wrong. And that's why I think he makes all these boneheaded decisions all the time, because it's all coming from here and God knows where else on his body. If he listened to people, we'd see a different administration. Those people were in the first one. He didn't listen to them either, and they all exited quickly. So to me, it's just, it's like, if you see him walking down the street, it's like chaos just follows him. Like if chaos was a human, Mr. Chaos would just follow him wherever he goes.
Well, the way you're describing it is more like, take a look at like Fifth Avenue, right? It runs north to south. Trump believes that he and only he should be permitted to drive south to north. Not exactly accurate the way you're describing it. He's really not a contrarian. What he is a populist. I mean, he actually has his ideas. He's always thought that tariffs are good. He's always thought that Putin is good. It's cool to be a strong man. He used to always say favorable things about Putin. You know, he likes that faux toughness, right? As opposed to, the tough guy, in all fairness, is really Zelensky. You're talking about an overpowered, overmatched, underfunded military that's beating the living shit out of Russia. And despite all of the years of Russia telling us that second to the United States and maybe equal with China, they are the strongest military country, right, in the world. It's not true. Whatever the hell they have, they fucking Ukrainians with drones blew it up the other day. $7 billion worth of fighter planes with like $100,000 worth of drones. That's a hell of a return on your money. Or $10,000 worth of dynamite. They took out the fucking bridge from Russia to Crimea. I mean, they have caused more damage. This is like 1 million soldiers that have been killed so far, with the bulk of them, believe it or not, being more on the Russian side than on the Ukrainian side. But Trump doesn't acknowledge Zelensky because he likes the way Putin strong arms all of Russia and keeps 25% for himself. Remember, much of Trump's decision-making is predicated on what he thinks will benefit himself. But can I ask you this question? Because since we're talking about tariffs, he's obviously now doubling down on tariffs on steel and aluminum. He's pushing them now to, 50% tariff? Turns around and he and his acolytes, enablers, and idiots all say that it's about protecting American industry. We're seeing prices on everything going to go up. Canned goods to auto parts, all of them are set to rise. How much longer do you think that this administration can pretend that tariffs don't hurt American families?
I think we're seeing it now. I think it's a real tell was when Trump called the CEO of Walmart and said, you have to eat these tariffs. To your point earlier, why would Walmart have to eat the tariffs if tariffs are paid by countries, right? Isn't that what we've been told for a year or two, that tariffs are paid by countries? Well, now we're realizing from his own words that actually it's importers and retailers and ultimately the consumer that pays the tariffs. But we're seeing, we saw the first quarter GDP contract for the first time since COVID. We just got these job numbers that came out today, 37,000 jobs created, the lowest in a couple of years. We're seeing it now. We could very well be in a technical recession by the end of June when the second quarter GDP comes out. And so these are things he cannot gaslight, because when there's a recession, when there's a lack of hiring, when there's a stock market collapse, when all of that occurs, the people at home feel it, okay? And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the MAGA gaslighting ends. Now, there will be some people who in July, I guarantee you, there will be people 2 years from now who'll go, it's all Biden's fault. Yes, I can't feed my kids and I can't get my services, but it's Biden's fault. Those people are getting smaller and smaller. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to continue because I think they're feeling it now, but they're going to continue, and maybe in a worse manner, the effects of his policies. So we're definitely seeing it now, and there's no hiding from it. If second quarter GDP contracts and we're technically in a recession, watch what happens on Wall Street. Watch the revisions that start taking place. We're seeing the opposite occur. There's like 3 major investment banking firms that have upped their S&P assessments going forward because they think we're sort of behind the worst of the tariff situation or whatever. But 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum, tariffs on Apple, 10% tariffs across the board to the European Union is devastating. So the point you made about the wine merchant, I've seen a children's product retailer also profiled on CNN several times.
I saw that too.
These small business people that are saying, I'm running out of my pre-tariff inventory. And when I run out of my pre-tariff inventory, I can't buy any more product. And if I can't buy product, I can't sell product. And if I can't sell product, guess what? I'm done. With all the people I interview, one of the things I always ask them is, are we in the economic calm before the storm? Because sitting here today, if you're invested in the stock market, you're okay. You made back probably most, if not all, of the money you lost during the Musk craziness. Things seem kind of quiet. There's not wild gyration. Like, people might seem okay, but is that the calm before the storm? We're starting to see it, like I said twice already, in the job numbers. We've seen it in the GDP. Why would anyone think that's only going to get better, not worse? So you and I, if we sit here and talk 3 months from now, the economy might be in a very different place and not a good one.
Yeah, agreed. Look, let's just take, for example, Trump's mantra, 90 deals in 90 days. I mean, that's become a punchline amongst, trade experts, not to mention, of course, late night talk show hosts, the 90 deals in 90 days.
There's not even one deal.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is there any evidence that this White House has even engaged, first part of the question, in any real negotiation? And 2, have they actually accomplished any of these deals? They keep talking as if 90 deals have already been done. Everybody's coming to us. Everybody's kissing the ring. Everybody wants to make a deal. Everybody wants to make the deal, right? And if you don't make the deal, I'm sending you a notification on how much the tariff is going to be, and you're going to live with it. It completely ignores the fact that the leader of that country is not beholden to the leader of the United States of America. And if you have product, take, for example, Canada, the aluminum, the steel, the soft lumber, energy, right? You know that half of New York, if not more, the entire northeast of the United States is basically powered by Ontario. So they flip that switch the wrong direction. We're all sitting in the fucking dark. What's this 90 deals, 90-day mantra?
There's no deals. And I don't know if you were watching the news earlier, he came out and said that he had a 30-minute or whatever, 90-minute phone call with Putin. And now he's predicting that the war's not going to end soon. Duh. Mister, I'm going to end it on day one.
Nostradamus has been reborn. The only person that said that war was coming to an end and within 24 hours is Commander Mussolini himself.
Look, we know, like we said before, there's no strategy behind any of this, and unfortunately, there's nobody around him that can guide him through any of this. Today he's also demanding again. He saw the job numbers, and his first thing he did was post that Fed Chairman Jay Powell, must bring the interest rates down. So he's expecting Powell to clean up his mess. Powell's not going to do that. And Xi in China, right? We know that Xi is sitting there going, fuck off, right? So I'd love to ask you, what do you think? Xi's not going to budge. He doesn't have to. He's running a dictatorship. Okay, what his people want or don't want or how much they spent, he doesn't care about that. And they got more money than God. Trump is sitting by the phone waiting for Xi to call so they can talk. And we've seen in the last week the pause. It's falling apart. Right? China's accusing us of reneging on the framework. We're accusing China. So if Trump is waiting for Xi to call and go, okay, all right, let's do a deal. Let's do a deal that you love. That day's never going to happen. So I want to know from you, knowing him the way you know him, what does he ultimately do? Because this stalemate can't last forever. Does he cave? Is he Mr. Taco?
Okay, it's a great question, and it probably belongs on your show as opposed to you taking over mine. But then again, love you anyway, my brother. I'll give you the answer. I'll give you the answer to that. He cannot cave in on it. He cannot, right? Because it would demonstrate two things. One, that he's weak, right? Which goes to the whole taco Trump, right? Trump always chickens out. And number two, right? It'll show that these policies that he's talking about, tariffs, which is something that was a major part of his campaign, was wrong all along. He cannot admit that he's wrong, and he cannot show weakness. That would be devastating to his id, his ego, and his super ego, all smashed into one narcissistic body. I mean, that's sadly where we're at. But look, the hour unfortunately goes by just way too fast. I have like a million more questions that I actually want to ask you. But I want to talk for a quick second about this immigration, these ICE raids, this manufactured chaos. ICE went ahead, they raided cities like San Diego the other day. And I hope that all of my listeners ended up seeing that absolutely hellacious fucking clip. Like, I can't believe that, number one, it was real, and two, that it was taking place in the United States, least of all San Diego, right? But it also took place simultaneously in New York, actually at the congressional office of Jerry Nadler. By the way, Jerry, your office is not even in your district. I know because I was contemplating on running against him for District 12. You're in the wrong location, pal. All right. But meanwhile, it's generating a shit ton of fear. Literally, more fear than results. The San Diego raid on that Italian restaurant with the 12.5, 24 ICE agents with the AR-15 strapped across, with the trucks, with the tear gas, with the little what do you call them? bunker busters, to get people to clear out of the streets. It ultimately resulted in picking up 4 people. 4 individuals. Number one, the expense does not justify the result, that's for sure. But I want to ask you, what's the strategic purpose here other than the optics and the distraction?
Well, it's optics. You have cosplay Christie, right? She's heading it up, and she every other day puts on a different uniform and plays dress up. People call her dress up Barbie or something like that. But it's also the cruelty. This.
I don't know about you, but I actually like Andy. I like when she gets dressed up. I really do. I think it's hysterical. It's like every day, this administration, it's like Halloween, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I like the hat she puts on. She puts on the makeup. She's got the solid gold Rolex going, the tight jeans. She's got the shirt, that's very showy. And she's standing in front of a bunch of half naked, if not 3/4 naked guys with their tattoos, all sitting there and drooling about her, right? With her, perfectly coiffed hair. I think it's kind of funny.
I'm sure Trump sees it that way too. But I prefer watching her at a Senate hearing when they ask her what does habeas corpus mean, and her answer is that it means that the president has a right to lock people up, which was absolute insanity. But I was going to say that, to me, and I've said this for the longest time now, the glue that keeps MAGA together, and Trump knows this, is racism. And that's what those clips are about. That's what those ICE raids are about. It's saying to MAGA, okay, we're making America white again. That's what it's saying. And so we have to go out and show you how we're rounding up all these brown people, these bad brown people, and getting rid of them. That's when I see those raids on TV. But the interesting thing about the San Diego one is that you saw how the neighbors pushed back and literally ran the ICE agents out of the neighborhood. They were in retreat
with cell phones.
Keep an eye on that shit, because between now and the midterms, if this kind of stuff continues, we're going to see in this country people rebelling like that, because it's outrageous and it speaks to the very core of who we are or aren't as human beings. And when a human being who has compassion and empathy and humanity sees that shit happening, it's almost like it's a visceral reaction. You can't help yourself but rebel against it. And we may be at the very beginnings of that. Hopefully we never have to get there, because a lot of this shit ends up going away. Maybe I'm wishful thinking. But if it continues, just like with the Muslim ban, remember what happened when he announced that Muslim ban? What went on at airports, the protests, people sprung into action. And that's why I said before, to kind of come full circle, I believe that most Americans are good, decent people and will not stand for this shit continuing.
Well, Andy, thank you for joining me. Appreciate you. I will, and I always do, look forward to coming back onto your show where you could quiz me more. Appreciate you, my brother, and stay safe. And I'm definitely I need to have you back for more insight. So thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate it. And we'll have to get you back on mine as well. Take care.
Always, pal.